Welcome to Wormhole Pinball Presents and part 4 of our podcast series we call Arcades Across America. I'm your host, Jamie Burchell of the Wormhole. Let's start off by welcoming back to the podcast my co-host, all the way from Cottage Grove, Oregon, Coe
Pleasure,
from
as
Quarter Drop
always.
Arcade. Hi, Coe.
Thank you, Jamie. Always look forward to arcades across America.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things every month, isn't it? It's turning into
Absolutely.
something really great. I'm real excited about it. So let's say hello to Mike Moretti from the Flipper Room, a pinball arcade and art gallery located in Concord, California. Welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And about an hour away from you, from the Flipper Room, is Evan Phillippe. Am I said that? I screwed it up, didn't I?
Okay, it worked.
Phillippe.
Phillippe from Pacific Pinball Museum in Alameda, California. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen. Great to see you again. I know I met Mike at Expo, but I don't know if I met you, Evan. I don't know.
No, we did a lot of stuff at Expo, and met a lot of great people. We might have slipped through the cracks, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We're here now.
We're here now, and we've got it going on. So the minute I met Mike and his wife, Coe, I said I went into podcast producer mode.
Okay.
Like
Good.
instantaneous. I'm talking to Mike for what, 2 minutes, and I'm like, "You need to be on the podcast." And he goes, "All right, can Pacific Pinball do it with me?" I'm like, "Well, that's just episode 4 booked."
That's great. I'm glad that you're like good at that because you're always like, okay, I booked so and so. I'm like, oh wow, perfect. I love it.
There you go. So since there's a bunch of us today, our goal is to not only get to know your establishments, but also pick your brain on this podcast series with Coe opening the Quarter Drop Arcade and the Wormhole expanding to other locations and growing. We want free consulting services from you, gentlemen. So let's see how that works, right? Let's
Good
start
luck.
with
Yeah.
Mike from the Flipper Room. Take it away, Coe.
Art gallery and pinball. How does those two things combine together? What is the origin story of having framing and pinball together?
I'll see if I can make this a short story. I
Okay.
started as a wholesale picture framing company 18 years ago, and there was no pinball in that mix. Our clients are art galleries, picture frame shops, art consultants, artists, photographers, anybody that's in the need for wholesale services with picture framing. And so that's what I did. When I rented my building, I befriended a guy across the street who worked for a demo company. They demo buildings. And a few years into it, he came up to me and said, "Hey, we went to this building and we got a pinball machine. Do you want it for your break room?" And I said, I don't know. I don't know if I want to open that book, And so we didn't. And he kept bugging me, you want the pinball machine? You want the pinball machine? Several years later, he died. And I had hired his son in between that. And so after he died, his son said, "Hey, we should get that pinball machine my dad wanted to give you, and we should get it working and put it in the shop to honor his memory." And I said, "Well, now's the time." So we
Wow.
did that. And that became the beginning of the Flipper Room, really. We put it in the lobby, and then 1 became 2, and 2 became 3. The employees
course.
were liking it. Someone put us on the pinball map. All of a sudden, I'm fixing pinball machines for free because everything was on free play. And then I just had an idea one day, maybe this is a way I can open my own retail shop, is to bridge this pinball, because we decorated the room and then it became rooms and everything was decorated really nice because that's what we're in the business of, presentation.
Sure.
And went to the city, got a permit, and we opened the Flipper Room as a retail picture frame shop, the hook being the pinball to bring the people in.
What was that first machine?
Star Wars Data East.
Ah,
Awesome.
I've
Which
always
we
liked
still
that
have.
machine. I know a lot of people are like not real big on that, but I've always thought it's pretty fun. It's actually my
Oh, it's
favorite
good.
of the Star Wars machines.
Yeah, and I definitely think it needs the updated code. It makes it much more playable.
Yeah.
Art and pinball work so well together. I know so many artists that play pinball and so many, we had Meow Wolf here. We hosted them. They're opening a new location in Houston, and every designer, we had 1 designer come, and then we had 6 of their artists come to the Wormhole and just became addicted to it. Why does that work so well, guys?
Well, pinball is like kinetic art, right? It's like a campfire that you're staring at, but it's full of artwork. And I think that's part of it. I mean, if we were playing games that were bare wood and glass, it would not be quite as interesting.
Mike, before we get to Evan, what's your relationship with the Pacific Pinball Museum?
Because I went over there and played pinball. And then I
Okay.
got to know Michael Sheese because he's really into art, and you know, a lot of that in common. Went over to their annex, got to know Larry. So I just got to know the people there. They got to know us. We tend to end up back and forth at our different events.
Evan, how did you get involved in the museum? And can you talk about how the museum started?
Sure. I've been with the museum for 5 years, 6 in about 2 months. And I started as the marketing director, but now I'm the executive director, taking over from Michael Sheese. And Michael and his wife, Melissa Harmon, founded the Pacific Pinball Museum. We're a registered 501c3 nonprofit, and this is our 21st year. And
Rats.
as such, thank you. It's kind of like a restaurant. You get past year 5 or 6 and you're pretty gold. You've got a system that works. And we're a board managed nonprofit, and we have 105 games in Alameda. That's a 13th of our collection. We have 1,300 games. We have the largest collection in the world that's not owned by a single individual. And we're really happy to have a real museum environment here. We have exhibits, artwork. Talking about artwork, pinball is so poppy and bright and colorful. And especially the games from the 40s, 50s, and 60s are so jewel-like in the dark when they're turned on. They're just beautiful art pieces. And like Mike mentioned, they're kinetic art too. Aside from the pop art colors and the design and the kind of comic characters. And it's just, it's a great job. People come here to have fun. They, by accident, kind of learn about pinball history and art and physics and math and science, all the STEM disciplines. So it's a really great job.
I'm very happy to announce that we have filed our 501c3 paperwork and are just waiting IRS approval. So,
Awesome.
some of the
Congratulations.
charities yeah, thanks guys. It's been a lot of paperwork, but some of the charities that we're going to be supporting involve neurodivergent individuals, and we're so excited to begin supporting those charities. Evan, I've read through your mission statement which I'm going to read to everyone because it's outstanding. To inspire an interest in science, art, and history through pinball, and to preserve and promote this important part of American culture. Congratulations on everything you're doing over there. Can you talk about fundraising for a 501c3? How's that going? I know that's difficult.
Sure. What you'll find out with 501c3s is banks do not like to lend to them. So you're very dedicated to fundraising and donations and patron admission. Optimally, a museum would be 50% patron admission supported and 50% donation supported.
Okay.
And we're a lot closer to 75-25. And that's more common amongst a lot of smaller museums. There are government grants, there are state grants. We, for instance, are chasing right now a grant that's education focused that would help Title I schools, which are underprivileged schools in Alameda and the East Bay, in the Bay Area, come to the Pacific Pinball Museum free of charge. It's a state program that would cover access costs and would be part of an education curriculum. Kids would come in, they would have an overview of the museum. We talk about the connection of history, math, science, technology, physics to pinball, turn them loose to play and kind of regroup at the end. And that's the kind of funding that's important to chase with an education mission. It's always a mission to collect money. We are coming up on our big fundraising season, really this month and next month at the first. We're doing a live stream for the museum on New Year's Day. We're closed for fundraising. Trying to find people that will match donations, chasing corporate donations, becoming an approved nonprofit that a corporation will match donations to is really important. And there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. Looking for people to work you into estate planning is really great. And sometimes that surprises you. That can come out of nowhere if you didn't coordinate with that person, but they thought about you, which is fantastic. But there's a lot of different ways. So small donations from a lot of really dedicated supporters. Larger donations from corporations, and then estate planning is really what we chase. And then there's separate grants at a county, city, or state level.
Well, fantastic. I we're just starting our fundraising challenges, so but we're excited to take that next chapter and grow. So
Evan, I was looking at your website and I saw you had from like Humpty Dumpty to Godzilla. I'm curious, like, how many machines do you have in the collection? And like, what is the, how many EMs compared to how many solid state and DMD? What is the breakup of the collection? Is it mostly old school EM or is it 50-50?
Sure, that's a great question. I will actually walk you gentlemen through the whole
Awesome.
museum. I'm going to flip
Perfect.
this around. So we are the Pacific Pinball Museum. We've got this tiny little storefront, and then we go all the way back in the very front. We just have 4 games that are on walk-up play. They're $1 each. So these are all new games, but it's actually an exhibit in its own. We have a Stern, Spooky, Jersey Jack, and we're actually going to add a Dutch Pinball Big Lebowski at some point in the near future.
Nice.
And this is a mini exhibit in itself, talking about the current larger manufacturers of pinball that exist.
Is that what the plaques above the machines is talking about?
It is.
Like,
Actually, the plaques above the machines are information cards that we have
brilliant.
for each machine. So we talk about what model the machine is, what year, who donated it to the museum, what collection it came from, other important information that's applicable to the machine. And as we come in, the first room that we enter is the history room. And this is where we have games from the 1940s forward for play, but we also have a static exhibit of older gambling games. These are not playable because they're a little too delicate for patron play, but they're really important parts of pinball history. And we do have a single pachinko machine as a reference because pachinko and pinball both have the same grandfather, Bagatelle.
What year is that pachinko? 70s?
That pachinko is absolutely from the 70s.
Yeah,
we've got what almost looks like the inside of a 1970s car door. And
I love it. It's a great era of pachinko. I've always enjoyed pachinko machines, and 70s in particular are pretty awesome.
This is the oldest game we currently have on exhibit. This is a Bagatelle from the 1880s.
Wow.
With the original Redgrave patented shooter on the bottom that really changed everything and allowed the game to shrink. And starting with our earliest playable game, of course, Humpty Dumpty from 1947. This is our earliest playable modern, what I would consider a modern pinball game. Of course, with the early flippers that were on the sides, just as a gimmick. It was just a new thing on a game to try to attract people, and ended up being so popular because people felt like they had control over the game that they retrofitted older boards, and we had flippers ever since. But currently in the museum, this is our history room. So we've got about 12 wood rails from the 40s and 50s. If we go over to this other side, we have a lot of really popular wedge heads. What a great era of pinball.
I see a 5 million BC there.
That is that's one of my favorite games.
Mine too.
My kids' favorite game. It's a great game with zipper flippers that come together every now and then.
This is a good time to mention for people listening to the podcast that they may want to go over to the YouTube channel, Wormhole YouTube channel, and check this out because it's really incredible what Evan is showing us right now.
This is our Pointy People exhibit in our Pointy People room.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
This is a specific art style from the late 60s where everything was really made out of triangles. And this is a curated exhibit. We've got special toppers on top of the games, but this is something we really strive to do, is have actual exhibits at the museum, not just a collection. So this was curated, it was researched. These games were pulled out of our 1,300 game collection specifically for this exhibit. We made sure they were playable, made sure that we chose games which are fun to play. My favorite personally in this room is Dogies. This Western themed one is fantastic. And this leads us into our oddball exhibit, which has been a very, very popular exhibit. These are pinball games that have a unique feature, a gimmick that they tried, and it was too polarizing. They never tried the gimmick again. So these are kind of dead end machines. They're relatively rare. We have games like Viking, which has this interesting setup with the different legs, and something which I think is a great idea, which is a drink rest and cigarette rest in front of the game. We have Safe Cracker.
Awesome.
which is a fun game, which is on
Nothing's
the
better
34th
than
play
getting that
field.
Does it have
quarter.
the tokens?
And we actually have the tokens. We have
Oh my
Gotta get the
gosh.
They
tokens.
are not
Yeah.
safecracker tokens because those are
That's
collector's
okay.
items. But they're actually, we measured them. We found a reproduction token that fits, and you can play this
Nice.
game entirely.
I
And-
think people seek out that game and are often disappointed when the
Yeah.
location does not have the tokens, because
Oh, you gotta
more
have the
times than
tokens.
not, it does not have the tokens.
As far as I can tell, we have one of two, I think, that have coins in them. So you can play it
Wow.
all the way. This is our second to last room, our members' choice room. This is actually the original museum room that we started in when it was the Lucky Juju arcade. This was about 21 years ago. It was
Wow.
a collection of 6 or 7 games and one jukebox, and it was only open Friday nights. You could come in and play in exchange for beer and chips. But this is a members' choice room now, and we let people vote on what came into this room. There's a couple exhibits, like our bumper exhibit that shows how bumpers function. We have the first visible pinball game ever made, which is really fun, which is based on a Bally Freedom. And people always get a kick out of things like the little xylophone that you can see inside that makes the noise. And it's actually more fun to watch someone else play this than it is to play it on your own, because you get to see everything work inside.
Yeah.
Oh, I see the best machine in the world.
Indiana
You
Jones.
like Funhouse?
No, World Cup soccer, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
World Cup
If you
I
listen
think
to
I would
me-
lean more towards Indy on that.
If you listen to me,
The-
you know that's my only machine that I own.
Yeah.
That's the first game the first and only game I've ever put a billion on. So I love this game because of that.
Oh,
I will say I don't even really care for soccer, but I do enjoy that game quite a bit. It's so fun.
it's the best.
So this whole wall is the sweet spot Renaissance era. These are 90s
Yeah.
games. Twilight Zone, Monster Bash, Addams Family, of course. And on this side is a side kind of special to me because this is what I remember playing at arcades in the 80s. These are games
Yeah.
from the 70s and 80s, like Flash Gordon and
Flash Gordon.
Joker Booker, Black Knight, Gorgar, first talking pinball game, Centaur.
Centaur, yeah.
And we also get into the 2020s games like Cactus Canyon, Iron Man, Tron Legacy. You would think that people would be stuck in one era of games, but they really do jump back and forth between games from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We have people, kids especially, will start in the modern room with movie-themed games they're familiar with, but they end up playing these older games for a long time because you get 5 balls, they're a little bit quieter, they're a little bit easier to understand rule-wise, and they just won't get introduced to them anywhere else. So it's really important to us to have a huge range of games available.
Well,
Impressive.
thank you for that. That was
Yeah.
Yeah,
fantastic.
that was fun.
Yeah,
I
for
really,
sure.
I really appreciate it. Mike, what makes up most of the collection at the flipper room?
We have a pretty it's broken up pretty diverse. We have from 71, the Wizard behind me. I mean, that was actually a Team 1 that was rethemed back into a Wizard. And then up to the current stuff. And we do a mix of everything. So it's like we have, right now it's 3 EMs, 6 solid state. We have about 3 alphanumeric, and then we go into like the 90s, the 2000s, and then we have a room of Stern, like the new Stern stuff. So it's broken up pretty evenly. I think with people wanting to play modern stuff, there is a little bent on the modern room. But it just depends. We rotate probably too often.
Right.
'Cause I like to mix things up. We do like we do a big rotation every 6 months, and then in between that, I'll rotate some stuff.
Are you guys
many?
on Coin Drop?
It's coin drop, yeah.
Okay, and how many are in the total collection, and how many are in the building?
There's about 70 in the collection and about half in the building.
And same question for you, Evan. You have 1,000. Yeah, you have a lot.
So we have 105 games here, and then we have 1,200 more in
Okay.
the warehouse. It's
Wow.
actually an old aircraft maintenance hangar that's about 2 miles from us on the old Alameda Naval Air Station air base, which closed with Naval Base, which closed about 27 years ago.
It's
Wow.
an amazing experience to go into the museum annex and just witness the amount of pinball machines visible at one time. Like you can get into a vantage point where you can see like all of the pinball machines, and it's wild. There's pictures online. It's fascinating.
That's actually what we're currently, our fundraising mission for the last year and for the foreseeable future is actually for a larger space. We have about, I think we're at a little under 10,000 square feet in the current museum. We really want to have something like 15 or 20,000 feet because we have more artwork, more exhibits, more archives, and more hands-on exhibits that are great for kids that we really need more space. And we want to have classes and hold lectures there as well. So that's what we're currently fundraising for until we don't need to.
Well, good
which
luck
doesn't
with-
really ever stop, but at least at a building at some point.
That's fantastic. Congrats on that, and I hope to help you get to that goal. That's unbelievable. You guys are a daily fee, right?
So yeah, we are a single fee for all day in and out with a wristband from when we open at 11 until when we close at 9 o'clock. And we also have memberships as well.
Great.
And I know you're looking to expand. So like where in the expansion process would you say you are?
We have just in the last couple of weeks really figured out where we are financially in terms of, say, a loan from a bank, where we stand with current reserves. So now we know what kind of number we should chase fundraising wise, which is great. That's half the problem in itself, is really establishing what number. Real estate wise, the Bay Area is always tricky just because it's expensive. As a nonprofit, you can generally offer tax benefits to folks who maybe own 5 or 6 properties and they're in the hole with their tax responsibilities. And if you are sold a property that is under their going market rate, that amount that is different could generally be deducted from your tax obligation. So that's the ace in the hole that we have. And aside from that, it's just continued fundraising. So really, we're looking in the greater Bay Area. So that is really from San Rafael to San Jose, and then kind of Oakland, Berkeley, Hayward, but including San Francisco, kind of the greater Bay Area.
Fantastic. Mike, as an operator, do you look at every building and just say, I could put another pinball machine there? Or do you?
No, I used to. I did in the beginning, and then I
Yeah.
started doing that, and I was pulling my hair out, driving around, fixing pinball machines, and I just one day said enough and stopped doing that. I have a couple at a brewery on the other side of Concord, and a business called me yesterday and asked if I would put one there, but they're down the street, so I can handle it. I'm okay with that. But no, I don't want to expand to a bunch of bars and have pinball machines around the Bay Area.
Does Concord have a real strong pinball community? Like, what's the tournament scene like? In
The
your
whole
area?
Bay Area does. The Bay Area in general has a huge scene. There's leagues. There's a lot of leagues. We have ours. There's one in Oakland. There's one in San Francisco. There's quite a few, and there's players that play in multiple leagues. We get between 30 to 40 every Tuesday night.
Great.
Tonight in a few hours.
Yeah.
And then those same people will play in another league on another night during the week.
How's the
That's great.
scene in Alameda?
It's very much the same. We have a lot of microbreweries that are out on the old Naval Air Station. So a lot of them have pinball games, and we've actually loaned some of our pinball games to them before. The Bay Area as a whole, like Mike said, and San Francisco is a great pinball scene. Leagues everywhere. We have a league at the museum, which is we feel like it's a very philosophical league, and that's really about having fun and social kind of interaction. It's run by a great gentleman, big into pinball scene in the Bay Area named Johnny O, who has a really great approach. We've heard from people that play in our league, it's less cutthroat, competitive wise, to say leagues in San Francisco, and that's something we appreciate. We want to have fun, we want to compete, people want to win, but really for us, it's about the environment and the social acceptance and the social fun. So we have what we think is a really great league here.
Awesome. On the before we started recording, they were talking about little flippers, and I think that'd be a good topic right now to shift to Mike. How did you start Little Flippers? And Evan, let's talk about how you got a franchise of Little Flippers going down the road?
The Little Flippers started at the Flipper Room when my kids were starting to get old enough to come in and play, and they would want to have their friends over to play as well. We were also, my wife and I were fostering at that time for the Foster Family Network here in the Bay Area. And we started opening up the Flipper Room to the families so that they could have some fun. And it was a great environment for parents getting to know the kids, getting to know the parents, and just the community in general. And through that, we just saw how wonderful it was, both for the kids and the parents. And we thought, maybe we can make this a thing that we do each month. And so we started doing that. I received a message one day from somebody in Florida saying they heard what we do and they thought it'd be really interesting if they could do something similar. Had I ever thought about opening up chapters? And so I let that stew a bit, and we eventually started doing that because more and more people were getting interested in it.
And Evan, when did you guys get interested in that in the museum?
That started, this is about 2 years ago now. We're lucky we have in Alameda, and I think the same gentleman helps the Flipper Room out. We actually have a registered teacher who teaches grade school who comes in to do it and volunteers on his own time. It's just a fantastic program. It aligned completely with what we're trying to do as a museum. Kind of, and as a mission as a whole, aside from the mission of education, it's definitely a subject where pinball has ups and downs, and we really believe it's important to make it a multi-generational attraction, because as people age out, less people will know, say, wood rail games and wedge head games and not be familiar with them, not have access to them. And we really think it's just important to introduce kids to pinball, help them learn how to be a better player if they've never played before. And we do include some history and some overview of pinball before they get to optimal pinball play and actually get on machines at different ages. So we do have kids who are 10, 11, 12 years old who end up being really good on games from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s and newer games, which is so much fun to see. And we just really feel that's an important funnel to make sure the game never goes away and that people are interested in all ages and how they play differently. And I just feel really fortunate that the Flipper Room came up with this project, and more chapters have blown up around the country in different locations. It's just amazing. It's everything aligned with what we wanted to accomplish as a museum. And we're just so happy and thankful that Flipper Room is so close to us, that we were able to do that as well.
What era of pinball do the youngest kids seem to gravitate towards? Is it the older machines?
I think here we get a lot of kids will first play on DMD games and modern games because of the themes. Like they'll see the Iron Man theme, Ghostbusters or Star Wars theme, and go play that game with its loud music and a lot of attractions and a lot of toys. They play longer, a lot longer on the wedge heads and wood rail games from the 50s and 60s, because you get 5 balls instead of 3. A slower gameplay, less distraction on the play field, easier rule sets, unless you're talking about a really complicated Gottlieb from the 50s or 60s, which we also have.
Sure.
And it's always a concern. People always ask. And a lot of times they'll start with those modern games, but they will spend longer playing the older games.
We have a similar response, actually.
Yeah.
I think part of it's the bells and the chimes too.
Yeah.
You know, you can feel when it's making sound, you know. I think there's just a different attraction to it, because with the modern games, you have these LCD screens, everything's coming at you fast, and they're already used to that, right? These kids are playing games, and then they play these old retro, and it's just something different. So it is pretty wild.
It's a novelty.
Yeah, it is pretty wild to see how, and it's not every kid. Right. You have some kids, it's like they're only going to play this machine. But I would say as a whole, I'm quite surprised how often the kids gravitate to the older machines.
That's great. I love it.
How can people get in touch with you, Mike, if they have a interest in starting Little Flipper? How can they get in touch with you?
Littleflippers.org, either thelittleflippers.org or just littleflippers.org. Mike at thelittleflippers.org is my email. You can first check out the website, see what it's all about, see what other chapters. We've got about a dozen chapters listed on the website with at least 2 or 3 that I'm working on signing up right now. So it's growing pretty fast. We just became a 501c3 about a week before I came out to the Pinball Expo.
Congrats.
And so we're just now finishing up some meetings to, see where that takes us and what we have in store, moving forward.
Well, congratulations on that. I know that's a difficult process, as we just went through it as well, and it's fantastic. And what you've done to give back to the community there is outstanding. I'm so excited to learn more about Little Flippers and maybe implement that here at the Wormhole. That'd be amazing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's amazing to see some of the kids that come out of these programs are good and they play in the San Francisco scene, at like 10, 11, 12. And it's funny to watch some of the really hot players that are like state players all of a sudden go up against this little kid, and it changes their game. It changes their mental state because now they're like, I'm playing this kid. I've got to do good. Is this kid going to beat me? And it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah.
They've got those young twitch muscles. It's kind of unfair.
Yeah. They do. First time I ever played in a tournament, Wesley Johnson's daughter had a stool, and she sat up on the stool and whipped me on Attack from Mars. Just destroyed me, and I was like, "Do I really want to come into this hobby?" But you gotta encourage those little kiddos, and it's so great. All right, last question I want to get to before we get to the hurry up because we have some time constraints, gentlemen. Have you, Matt, had any issues hiring staff, especially technicians? Same question for you, Evan, as well, because volunteers and technicians are vitally important for both of our operations.
Well, I am the technician here.
Okay.
I got into this, as I told you, I opened a frame shop, not a pinball arcade. And now that I have a pinball arcade, it turns out there's a gentleman down the street from me, 3 buildings, that has been working on pinball machines since 1968. He worked for Bally, he worked for Atari. He's been around a long time, and he immediately came into my shop and said, you're going to need to know how to work on these. He gave me a bay in his shop that I could work in at any time I want, a key to the place, and he's been showing me how to do this. And fortunately, I'm a tinkerer, so I've latched on really quickly. And because I'm here every day, if I hear a pinball machine have a problem or somebody says something, I just go deal with it right away. I have that luxury because I'm here. If I don't have the time, I put a note on it and I'll get to it after work.
What about you, Evan? How do you maintain these 130 plus machines on your site?
So the games we have in the museum, the 1 day a week we're closed is Monday. We call that our fix-it day. And between about 5 and 10 in the evening, we have a kind of a range of 7 to 12 volunteers. And it takes us about that 5 hours to repair everything we've listed throughout the week. We keep a running list. We have a shared Excel sheet that people can see from remote, and they can see kind of what's happening. If people have favorite games they're really familiar with, they can take a look and say, okay, I need to fix the magic chest on Theater of Magic when I come in, it's not spinning, so they know what they're walking into when they come in Monday night. But it's just really imperative. If you're running a nonprofit right, you're flipping something like 90% of the money right back into the mission. Right. So there's not a lot of leeway to hire specific technicians to come in. And sometimes it comes to that if you have a very specific problem. But we so far are very, very lucky to have just a ton of mostly retired people that are super invested in the museum, have been associated with us for a really long time, are familiar with what we do, and just volunteer their time. And that's really the only way we can function. And when we think about scaling that to, say, a 300, 400, 500, 600 game location with exhibits someday, we think about how, yes, we were very picky about the volunteer crew we had for this 105 game setup we have right now. we're going to have to be very, very careful about training and bringing people aboard and what they're allowed to work on for the next leap. And we will have to cast a larger net. We will need maybe 3 times the volunteer pool.
Yeah, you're going to.
We want to do.
Yeah, you're going to, because I mean, we have a great staff of techs that volunteer on Wednesdays, and because we're new guys, we can start and use the technology. So instead of, we're going to use QR codes on all the machines, and then the QR code will go to show everything about the machine for the patron, and then for the techs, there'll be a tech section where they'll know something's wrong with this machine. It's like either a Google Doc or something a little more fancy than that. So that's what we're working on right now. We have a place called the Vault that we're starting to show people where we have the rare machines at, and so it takes a village, and we're all familiar with that. All right, guys, are you ready for the quick rapid fire hurry up game show? We call the hurry up, whatever the hell. I messed that all up. It doesn't matter. Coe, rather than being my co-host, you're going to play. We're going to insert game music. We've got 10 minutes left. So here we go. Mike, starting with you. What is the highest earning machine at the Flipper Room?
Indiana Jones.
Evan, give me your Holy Grail pinball title to add to the museum.
Oh, wow. We're getting it, though. Big Lebowski.
All right. Coe, give me a Sega Genesis cartridge that you want in your collection.
Well, I mean, I'm fortunate to have.
I know, that's why I gave you a tough one.
There's an isometric run and gun called Skeleton Crew that's pretty pricey that I don't have yet. I'd like to get that.
All right, people, send your info to Coe so we can get that.
Yeah, keep it cheap.
Keep it cheap. All right, starting with Mike. OG Metallica or Metallica Remastered? Pick one.
OG all day. We repped Donnie's work, so it's a no-brainer.
Evan?
OG. I grew up in the Bay Area.
Wow. I expected a different answer on that one. I was going to say remastered.
You're saying remastered?
I'm all about it, yeah.
I can't break the tie, so sorry. Which of these pins? I would go remastered because I got to play it, and it's pretty BA.
Gotcha.
It's pretty BA. Yeah. But I like new shit. I like shiny stuff. Out of these rumored pins, Mike, which one would you be most excited about? Harry Potter, Goonies, or Sonic the Hedgehog?
Goonies.
Coe?
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Evan?
Easy Goonies.
Yeah, I think so too. Evan, what's the best pinball mech of all time?
I like the idol in the 90s Indiana Jones. The spinning idol that holds the ball.
Coe, same question.
I just did a video about it, so I'm going to say Medieval Madness's Castle.
All right, Mike, end it with you. Best mech pinball machine.
But since he just said the Medieval Madness, which I think is the best mech, let's go with I'm gonna rapidly take my time.
Intense music and fire effects are happening right now. The hot seat.
Use Medieval Madness if you want, because
I mean, that's just to me, it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. It is Medieval Madness is the answer.
Yeah,
it's
Godzilla's building is up there.
Godzilla's building's pretty cool too. So
yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. It was a great 4th edition of our podcast series called Arcades Across America. Evan, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us about the museum. Please visit pacificpinball.org for more information and hours of operation. Anything else you want to plug, sir?
You know, we're coming into our fundraising season, so if people have corporations, jobs, estate planning, if anyone knows someone who will match when we do our special New Year's Day fundraiser, please reach out to us. We would love to partner with you.
Awesome. Please do that, people.
Thank you.
Mike, thank you as well. I had a great time chatting with you and your wife at Expo.
Thank you.
Please visit theflipperroom.com for more info. Anything you want to plug, sir?
Just come say hi if you're in the town for some business, and check out our new shirts. They're always fun. And they keep
your shirts were awesome.
I saw those. They're really
They
cool.
were
Yeah.
just fantastic. Co, where can people follow your progress on the quarter drop?
Quarter Drop Arcade on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, quarterdroparcade.com.
Of course, all information on the wormhole is on wormholepinball.com or Wormhole Pinball on all the socials. Next week's Thanksgiving, gents. So here in the States, I'm going to release a little mini podcast with Aaron Winnick. Then a super podcast announcement on December 6th. A super podcast announcement, Co.
Ooh,
It's
okay.
awesome. And
This
before
is
I
news
sign
to
out,
me.
I want to ask the audience and maybe these three gentlemen, if anyone has seen for sale or is interested in selling any machines by a Brazilian company called Taito. Okay. We are looking for pinball machines from a company called Taito to add to our collection. We are also looking for pinball machines made by a French company called Rally Play Company. They made games from 61 to 69, and we'd really like to add that to our collection. So hit us up on wormholepinball@gmail.com for more information on those machines. All
Rob
right.
Burke, do you hear?
I don't know if Rob has these, to be honest with you. So, all right, everyone, thank you so much for this evening. This was the blast for Wormhole Pinball and Arcades across America. I'm Jamie Burchell. Please visit your local arcades. They're owned and operated by really great people, just like Evan and Mike and Co. All right, remember, have fun.
Thanks. See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.